dia. A gente dá bom dia, a gente gosta de receber de volta também. Bom dia! Muito bom. É um prazer enorme estar aqui com vocês novamente. A gente está tendo muitas oportunidades de estarmos conversando sobre educação, falando sobre aprendizagem, e hoje, mais especial ainda, que a gente tem aqui com a gente a Karen Boyce, veio da Nova Zelândia para fazer uma capacitação para o nosso time de liderança. A gente teve a oportunidade de ter um treinamento com todos os nossos educadores ontem, e hoje a gente está abrindo para a comunidade, para a gente conversar, para a gente poder aprender bastante quando a gente fala sobre hábitos da mente e como isso influencia no aprendizado, né? So, I would like to introduce Karen Boyce, and we will have... desculpa. A gente vai ter tradução simultânea, então vocês podem colocar quando ela começar. Espero que vocês gostem bastante das informações. No final, se vocês quiserem fazer perguntas, ela vai deixar um tempinho para a gente poder conversar e tirar as dúvidas que vocês têm. Tá certo? Então, uma boa palestra para vocês. Karen Boyce.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. That's how we say welcome in New Zealand. Ko Aotearoa te waka. In New Zealand we say my waka, my boat, my canoe is New Zealand. So that's how we travel. Te tākika te manga means that my mountain, we identify with a mountain, and my mountain is the Tākika Hill, which is where I grew up, this beautiful place with only 1,000 people in the township. So, very small. Te Waikarepupu Te Awa, my water, my river, is the Waikarepupu Springs, which is the clearest water in the southern hemisphere. It is absolutely stunning. Ko Ngaitahu Aho, which means I come from the Ngaitahu tribe, and the Ngaitahu tribe is the only New Zealand Maori tribe that allows women to speak before men. All the other tribes, all the men must speak before a woman is allowed to speak. But in our tribe, women can speak first. So I'm very proud to be a woman who's allowed to speak. And ko Karen Boyce aho, meaning my name is Karen. So I do come from Paradise. Who has been to New Zealand? Yay, so you know Paradise. And who wants to come to New Zealand? Good, we need you. We like tourism. It's how our country thrives. So please come and visit. Let me know when you're coming. I will be your tour guide. I will help. So this is my family. I come first and foremost to you today as a mum, as a parent, as a wife, and so I have 2 children. They have grown. My son is 19. He has left school. He has a full-time job and he pays rent. I call that profiting off your children, or parental success. Right? Successful when your children pay you. My daughter is nearly 17 and she is what we call sporty spice. She plays 7 sports, 2 at top national level. She plays cricket and netball, so she is very busy. My husband is a first aid trainer for St. John, and he is a first responder. So in emergencies, he is the first responder who will go in to help in an emergency situation. And so we live in the capital of New Zealand, Wellington. I have a company called Spectrum Education, and my company is the umbrella company for several different brands. One is the Study Smart. I spend a lot of my time teaching students how to study and pass exams. So teaching them how their memory works, teaching them how to recall information under stress. My second part of my business is called Teachers Matter. And so that part of our business is where I work with teachers to help them to develop a curriculum to prepare our children for the future. So that's where I get to travel around the world, come to beautiful Brazil, and be able to work with parents and teachers around the world. So I wanted to talk about the future and thinking about the future for your children and what that future might entail. The futurists talk about 2030. It's not very far away. 2030 in 11 years. 2030, they say that the world will look very different than it does today. So futurists talk about in 2030, 2 billion jobs will be gone from our planet. 2 billion jobs. I'd like you to think about that for a moment and think about which jobs do you think will be gone in the next 11 years. Turn to the person next to you, please, and if you don't know them, introduce yourself. And if you do, or once you do, please talk to them about which jobs do you think will no longer be jobs in the next 11 years. Go. Tell the person next to you. And please begin to finish up. And thank you. So please tell me, call out, which kind of jobs do you think will be gone in another 11 years? Which jobs? Call them out.
Engineers, for example.
Engineers. Because?
Because most of the time they calculate. They have to build structures and make a few process to build this structure. I think that we will find everything in computer programs.
Thank you. So a lot of the work that engineers do will be computer programmed and robots will take over. They even now have robots that can fill potholes in the road. So it's totally automated, don't even need a human to do that process. So one of the jobs that will be gone will be some of the high engineering that happens every day. Thank you. What else? Yes? Drivers.
Uber drivers.
Yes, so the taxi drivers, the Uber drivers, in fact, bus drivers, thank you, truck drivers. The number one employment in America is truck driving. And the driverless cars means that your children may not actually need to get their driver's license. Or if you have teenagers now, they will be the last generation to get their driver's license. Because driverless cars means that we won't need taxi drivers and Uber drivers and bus drivers and truck drivers. We already have trucks that drive themselves in Europe, and those trucks can convoy. They can start in 3 different places, find each other, and then travel together. And no human is involved in that process. Even more, we know that not only will we not need drivers, but we won't need parking buildings, because your car will drive you to work, and then you can send your car home. So we don't need parking buildings in the city. And if you are more entrepreneurial than that, your car can be an Uber for the day and then pick you up at the end of the day. So So you could be at work and earning money from your car. So that's something that's going to happen in the future. There are many more jobs that will be gone. Of course, the people who work in our supermarkets and scanning our goods. There are people who are in industries such as optometry. So now you can actually go online and test your own eyesight with the same accuracy as an optometrist can when you go to the shop. But even more than that, you can now buy your glasses online for $20, $30. So these are online glasses, fully prescriptioned for $40. That would be $40 US. So they come in the mail, and I just put the prescription in online. And so a lot of the jobs and the things that we tend to think are normal will actually be automated and changed. That doesn't mean there won't be jobs. There are lots of jobs that are going to be around for our children, except we don't know what they are. 60% of them, we don't know what our children are going to do in the future. But what we do know is that 40% of the 5-year-olds in school right now will have to be self-employed to have any form of income. Now the challenge with that is school was originally set up to create employees, people who turn up on time, people who get the work done, people who don't question, people who just hand it in, do it on time, and clock out at the end of the day. And so the employee mindset of school was that that's what would happen, and we would create employees. But to be an entrepreneur, to be self-employed, you need very different skills. To be self-employed, nobody knows if you turn up. Nobody knows if you do the work. You not only have to do the work, you have to get the work. You have to invoice the work. You have to look after the employees. You have to do everything. And it's a very different mindset to be able to be self-employed as it is to be an employee. And please know, we still will need employees, but the 40% of our children will have to be self-employed to have any form of income. So that's a huge statistic for our learners, and why it's so important we look at our school system and look at how are we preparing our children for the world. And I know that at Concept, the children are being very well prepared for the world. So, thinking about the future and the change in the future, what might be some of the skills, the dispositions, the abilities that we need our students to be able to do in a world that we don't know what it looks like? In a world where there could be lots of problems to solve. In fact, there are going to be lots of problems to solve. In fact, you and I have caused a lot of those problems for our children to solve. So please turn again to the person next to you and talk to them about what kind of skills, what kind of dispositions, what kind of abilities are your children going to need to survive in an ever-changing world and in a future when they need to be problem solvers. Turn to the person next to you. Go. And please begin to finish up. And thank you. So again, please call out what kind of skills, what kind of dispositions would you like your children to have to be able to be thriving and surviving in this changing world? Call them out.
You gave us.
The skills on the card, yes. Specifically, which ones?
All of them.
All of them. Yes, and actually that is why why I'm here, because those are the skills that two people who have thought very long and very hard about this for 25 years, about how do we prepare children for a future that's changing, are my great friends, Professor Art Costa and Ben O'Culloch. And these two incredible people have spent 25 years searching for what makes successful people successful. They wanted to know, were there certain behaviours, certain dispositions, certain skills that successful people have? And then they wanted to know, if there are, can we teach them? So they found out the answer was yes, there are certain skills and behaviours of successful people. And secondly, yes, you can teach them. So originally they found 7, and then they found 12, and now there are 16. And there could be more. And they are those dispositions that you have on your card. The 16 habits of mind. And Concept is a very progressive school to be able to know that these are the skills that your children will need, and have been teaching them to your children for the past year and working with them to develop these. Obviously these don't develop instantly, they take time, and it takes about 5 years for a school to really embed these habits of mind and be able to be successful with them. But it becomes a language that we use as educators and that you use as parents and that our children use to be successful. So one of the things that we want to be aware of as we unpack these dispositions or these habits of mind is that we want to focus on the learning. And so we're not so interested in the end result. We are more interested in the learning that goes on for your children. And it reminds me of the old, do you remember going to doing the school science fair? Did you have a school science fair when you were at school? And you had to make the display, and you went to the science fair and proudly showed your display. Well, my son had to do a science fair, and for me it was all about the learning. And he spent a lot of time at home learning and time at school learning about his project, and he created this wonderful display. And then I went to the science fair and I felt very sad because all the other children's science fair displays had been done by their parents. And it was very obvious, right down to the beautiful handwriting that was on the displays. But my son had done all of his. He had done all of the learning. And he was able to talk about what he had done. He was able to answer questions about what he had done. And we have to be careful that we're not doing the learning, but that we're not focused on the end result, but that our children are doing the learning. So being really careful that we are focused on what are they learning, not what is the end result. I am far more excited when my children bring home a C- than I am when they bring home an A. And the C- is exciting because it means there's more learning. It means that there's things we can be learning. But an A tells me they already know it. And where do we learn now? What do we need to do now? So yes, A's are important, but I'm far more excited about the learning that goes on for my children. One of the things that the habits of mind really promote is independence. We want your children to be highly independent so they don't have to rely on other people to do the thinking and to do the learning. And one of the ways that you can help your children to be independent is to stop carrying their school bag to school, right? And let them carry their school bag. In fact, my husband told my daughter yesterday that I was going to be doing a presentation to you today, and I was going to be talking to parents and talking about promoting independence. And she said, "Dad, do you remember that if I dropped my school bag on the ground, that you just kept walking?" And he said, "Yes." She said, "You never carried my school bag." We said, "No, never, because it's not our job." And we would just keep walking and the school bag would be left. And so if she wanted it, she had to go back. And so what is the one little thing that we can be doing? My daughter is now nearly 17, and she said so many children in her class, their mums still make their lunch for them. And she says, "Mum, you haven't made my lunch since I was 8. I'm like, "Yes, sweetheart," because she's capable of making lunch. So she makes her lunch every day, and I don't buy sweet treats for them. If they want sweet treats in their lunchbox, they have to make them. I've taught my children to be very independent. So my son is going to be a great catch for a woman one day because he makes a wonderful banana cake. He makes one banana cake each week, and that's his snack for his lunch every day. And but they're very independent. We have to, as parents, practice stepping out the way. We need to be able to stop rescuing and stop picking up the school bag and let them learn. We also need to help them fail, because failure is part of the learning process. We want them to learn, and learning, remember when they learned to walk? They got up and they fell over, and they got up and they fell over, and they got up and they fell over. None of us said to our children, "Don't fall over anymore." See, the only reason they can walk is because they kept falling over. And that's the same in learning. It's the same in school. They're going to fail in school. They're going to make mistakes in school. They're going to make mistakes in life. And that's part of the learning process. I love this acronym. FAIL stands for the first attempt in learning. And it's okay to not get it right the first time, actually, and the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time, because that's how we learn. So Art Costa and Bena Kellett really looked at these habits of mind to see how do they make a difference for our learners? How do they help our children to be successful? And we're going to unpack just a few of them because it would take too long to do all of them. So let's have a look at persisting, taking responsible risks, and remaining open to continual learning. None of these habits of mind work in isolation. They all are intertwined. So we can't talk about one without talking about others. Persisting is sticking to a task. Persisting is, if plan A doesn't work, you try plan B. If plan B doesn't work, there are another 24 letters in the alphabet. And, or as a colleague says, she says you want to get to plan W, plan for the win, W for win. So we need to keep having different strategies and different ways to try and try and try again. We also want our children to take responsible risks, to give it a go even if they're not sure. And I know for some of you, you are not feeling very confident in your English, but I have to tell you that your English is much better than my Portuguese. I have 2 words in Portuguese. And your English is very good. In fact, when I was working at one of the campuses with the children, one of the children said to me, he said, "Your English is beautiful." And I said to him, "Thank you, it's all I have." He was so gorgeous. But we need to take responsible risks and try even if we're not sure. We also need to remain open to continual learning, to know that as children and as adults, there's always more to learn. We can always get better at what we do. So, when your child learnt to ride a bike, there were those wobbles and they fell off and they scrape their knee and they cry, and it's part of the learning process. But I love this idea. Everything is hard before it is easy. And I think in a world where everyone tells us that life should be easy, our children need to know that everything is hard before it is easy. It's hard to learn to ride a bike. It's hard to learn to read and write. It's hard to structure an essay in the correct way. It's hard to remember information for an exam. And they need to know that it's okay for it to be hard, because that's the way learning works. We also need children to know to get to easy, you have to go through hard. And so this was a commercial on the back of a bus in my town. And we need them to know that it is going to be hard and it's okay. And that we as parents don't rescue, but we support them to go through the hard. We support them. I bet you have these beautiful butterflies that flutter in your garden over the summer, as we do in New Zealand. This is called a Monarch Butterfly. And did you know that if you help a butterfly out of the chrysalis, if you help it out of the cocoon, it will die? Because it's the struggle as it comes out that allows the wings to strengthen and allows it to fly. And so this is true for our children too. It's the struggle that makes them strong. If you think about the best learning times in your life as an adult, I bet it involved some form of struggle. I bet it involved you having to work through the hard to get to the easy. And that's how learning happens. And we want it to happen like that in school as well. Carol Dweck is a lady who has thought about this as well. So Carol talks about a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And so she talks about how important it is that our children have a growth mindset. And so, here's the difference. Children with a fixed mindset, or people with a fixed mindset, as you can see, they avoid challenges because it might make them feel like they're not successful if they can't do the challenge. They give up easily. They see effort as fruitless. Why bother if I'm not going to be successful? These people ignore useful feedback, and they're often threatened by others. And my son would be predominantly displaying a fixed mindset. And that's because when my son was born, he was very quick to pick up language. He was very quick to pick up patterning, and he had beautiful articulation and language and used big, sophisticated words. And so he was reading by the time he was 3. He wasn't taught to read, he just learnt to read books by the time he was 3. By the time he was 5, he was reading Harry Potter. So he was incredible. By the time he was 8, he was speed reading. So I teach speed reading. And so he was reading The Hobbit. Do you know The Hobbit? Who's seen the movie The Hobbit? That is made right next to my house. The river that you see in The Hobbit is my house, by my house. He read The Hobbit in 2 hours. He's a fast reader. He's a fast thinker. And he has so many natural talents. And one of my son's natural talents is running. He's very tall, he's very lean, and he's a great long distance runner. But he has never trained. He has never gone out to do training runs. He's never done any practice because he's just naturally gifted at running. And he always gets into the team because he's gifted naturally. But he will never try and get into a team that is beyond his ability right now, because that would mean he has to train and he might fail. So he has a very fixed mindset. Whereas my daughter has a growth mindset, and she embraces challenges. She says, let me try, let me give it a go. She persists when there's obstacles. When she doesn't get into the team she wants to get into, she says, I'll get into a different team. In fact, right now she plays for 4 cricket teams and 2 netball teams, because one wasn't enough. She sees effort as the reason that she can be successful. She trains and she goes out, she does 100 netball shots every day, 100 netball shots. She is out there in cricket season practicing her cricket. She's a wicket keeper and an opening batswoman. So she's practicing and practicing and practicing. She doesn't like criticism. Nobody likes criticism, but she takes it. When the coach says, you need to do better, you need to focus more, you need to shift your hand position, she practices and practices, and she takes that feedback and gives it a go. And she's inspired by other people's successes. She has posters of famous sports people all around her bedroom, because that's who she aspires to be. So she has a growth mindset. And the difference is really in the effort. Whereas my son puts in no effort and can be successful, she puts in a lot of effort and is even more successful, because natural talent will only take you so far. And he stopped trying and stopped going into teams and stopped doing the things he wants to do. My son wanted to be in the Air Force. He wanted to be a pilot, but physics was hard, so he didn't try. He could have done it, but he didn't put the effort in, so he's not in the Air Force. He's still a cadet in the Air Force, but he's not going to be flying aeroplanes because he doesn't want to put the effort in. So we want our children to have this growth mindset. We want them to be able to put that effort in. So here's what we want. The difference is how we praise our children. Are we praising them for being a good girl or a good boy? Or are we praising them for the effort that they put in? I like the way you persisted on that task. I really like the way you took that responsible risk and gave it a go even though you weren't sure. I love the way you have an open mind to learning and continually want to learn and keep getting better at what you do. So if we want our children to have a growth mindset, we need to reward the effort. If we want our children to stay with a fixed mindset, we reward the child. When we say you're a good girl or a good boy, they don't know what they did to be good, and they can't repeat that. They can't do it again. Or when we say, you're so smart, you're so intelligent, you are amazing, they don't know what they did to be amazing. They just are.
So So you have two kids, right? A boy and a girl. Did you raise them differently?
Yes.
I assume that they are born with this ability of
No.
time or growth time.
Good question, thank you. No, they're not born with this, and we parented very differently. We didn't know this information, and so my boy, because he's naturally talented, he was always praised for being clever, for being smart, for being intelligent, for being a great runner, but he was never praised for the effort, whereas we have spent a lot of time praising our daughter for the effort.
They're all different, so you never raise
Yes.
them the same, right?
No, you don't.
So look through the differences and go through the same goal, get the same goal. So
Correct.
how do you do in order to try to, look through the differences and go through the same goal, get the same goal?
So just continue to reinforce the effort that they're doing. So reinforce what the skills and the dispositions rather than the person. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So when we are being able to develop this growth mindset for our children, we also have other dispositions that our children need to develop. So this one, thinking and communicating with clarity and precision. This one is about the quality of our language. And in the world, we need to be able to communicate very well. And have language and thought is totally intertwined. The better the language, the better the thought. But do you ever hear children say, it's kinda that weird stuff? What is kinda? What is weird? What is stuff? And there's no precision to the language they use. Or do you hear your children say, everybody has one? And I say, everybody? Everyone in the whole wide world? And then they say, no, just everyone in my class. And I go, everyone in your class has one? No, just 2 people. Oh, just 2 people have one. And so we get more specific with the language rather than that generalization. Advertising does this. When you hear Toyotas are better than what? Right? And so they leave out information. Or calcium is good for you. But they miss out the piece that says that to get calcium, you also need other things in your body for your body to absorb the calcium. So they don't tell you all the information. And so we want to be able to be really precise with our language. Now, one of the best things you can do to encourage your children to have great language is to have what we call connectable moments. To be able to spend time with your children and do things with them. So baking in the kitchen, going for long walks, going to the park and playing together, being able to have conversations and talk to your children using adult language. They love the language of adults. The children love the language of the habits of mind. 2-year-olds love saying, manage your impulsivity. They love the language. And I believe if a child can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, they can say managing your impulsivity. If they can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, they can say think and communicate with clarity and precision. And so we need to use great language with our children and create those connectable moments. Do you know, one of the connectable moments is having fun with your children. Just doing things that are fun and exciting and having conversations about those. One of those times is breakfast. And did you know that breakfast for the brain is the most important meal for your child? particularly when it comes to learning. And so ensuring that your child has breakfast every day is important. It's a non-negotiable in my house. You cannot leave the house if you haven't had breakfast. And by the way, breakfast doesn't have to be traditional breakfast food. Sometimes my children cook pasta for breakfast. Sometimes they cut up the cold potatoes and cook chips for breakfast. Sometimes they have leftovers from the night before for breakfast. It doesn't matter what they're having as long as they're having something to refuel their body. And I often talk to teenagers about brain food because teenagers often don't have time, or they need more sleep, so they don't get up in the mornings, or they think they'll be fine till morning tea. But we can't run our car without petrol, and we can't run this incredible body without great fuel. And the better the fuel, the better the performance. So when we want our children to have great brains and great thinking and great learning, we need to make sure they're having great food. I often talk to students about takeaway food, and I'll show you this. Let me think, 27th of February 2002, so that's over 17 years ago, I went to McDonald's and I purchased a cheeseburger. I unwrapped it, I put it on a plate, which I know is unusual, and I put it on my desk in my office. It's still there. 17 years later, my hamburger is still sitting on my desk. I'm about to show you a photo. Are you ready? That's actually when it was 5 years old, but I can tell you that it looks exactly the same today. The meat hasn't gone mouldy, the bread hasn't gone mouldy, the cheese, the pickle, it looks exactly the same as the day I purchased it. Even more than that, it does not smell, and the truth is, you could eat it if you want. These would be great in your civil defence emergency kits, in your emergency rations. Save for emergency. And I show children this because it looks good and it even tastes good. They're not actually good for you. So we don't want our teenagers particularly spending a lot of time eating this kind of food. So I'd like to share with you the 10 top brain foods, the 10 foods that are really good for your brain. But you've been sitting for a while, so we're going to do this with your body. We're going to learn through your senses and learn through more of a kinesthetic way. So here's what I invite you to do, is to please put anything in your hands under your seat, and please stand. Okay, we're going to do 10 foods, and these 10 foods are the 10 top brain foods according to Dr. Eric Jensen, one of the top brain researchers. And we're going to do movement for these. So we're going to start from the top of your body and go down to the bottom. So please put your hand on your head like this. And I'd like you to pretend you're in drama class. And I'd like you to pretend that we're talking about being upset. And the colour we would probably use to describe being upset is the colour blue. And I'd like you to pretend that you're upset, and we're going to go, oh, I'm blue, oh. So dramatically to the person next to you, show them that you're upset and you're blue. Drama class, come on, dramatic. So this first food, you look great. This first food is blueberries. Please say that out loud. Blueberries. Blueberries. Please put your hands on your shoulders. This one is nuts. Say nuts. Thank you. Hand here and make it flap up and down on your heart. And so this one is fish. Fish. We call it flapping fish. Flapping fish. To remind you that it's fresh fish, not live fish. The fresher, the better the fish. Fresh fish. So let's revise the first three and check we remember them. So say them out loud. Blueberries. Fish. Thank you. Please put your hand here. This one is broccoli. Broccoli. Do you say broccoli or broccoli? Broccoli. Okay. So, broccoli. So this is a high protein food that's actually very good for the brain. Broccoli. Broccoli. Please put your hands on your hips like this. And swing your hips like this. And say banana. Alright. This is not dance class. And then we go 1 and 2 with your hands. 1 and 2. And this one is yogurt. Yogurt. Alright, so let's revise those three. This one is? Let's check from the top. Blueberries, nuts, fish, broccoli, bananas. Very nice. Please put your hands on your thighs. Rub in a circle and say olive oil. Yeah. From the top of your thighs down to your knees and back up, say whole grain bread. Whole grain bread. When I was a child, I grew up on a cartoon character. I wonder if you know this cartoon character. His name was Popeye. What did Popeye eat? Spinach. So, makes you strong. So you pick up the weights from your toes, you pick them up to your knees, you drop them and you say spinach. Pick them up one more time, drop it and say spinach. And the last one, you move your toes side to side and you say tomatoes. Or tomato. Do you say tomatoes? Tomatoes. Okay. Tomatoes. Alright, so let's do those last four. This one is olive oil, whole grain bread, spinach, and tomatoes. From the top. Blueberries, nuts, fish, broccoli, bananas, yogurt, olive oil, whole grain bread, spinach, tomatoes. Without my lead, please turn to the person next to you and show them all 10 foods. Go. You don't need to write them down because they're on your body now. And when you're at the supermarket, you're just going to go and you'll remember. When we're talking about communicating with language, there are many different ways to communicate. And one of them is through words, but of course one of them is just through gestures. And so using our body to learn can be very powerful. There is a word that I would like you to remove from your vocabulary though, and it's this word here. Don't. Don't think of yellow. And don't think of a pink cat. Please don't think of a pink cat. And whatever you do, don't think of that pink cat in a purple tree. Don't think of that. See, you instantly think of it, right? What your brain has to do is think of the pink cat and then go, oh, I'm not supposed to think about that. And you have to think about the purple tree and then go, oh, I'm not supposed to. And so this word is a very interesting word. Our brain doesn't recognize this word. So when you say to your children, don't forget, what is the image inside their head? Forget. They're going to forget. So instead of saying don't forget, we need to say remember. Tell them what we want them to do, not what we don't want them to do. I can stop an entire doctor's surgery of people and have them freeze because my children would be playing and they'd go to touch something that they weren't supposed to touch. And most parents would go, "Don't touch," which nobody hears. But I would shout, "Leave it!" And everyone in the doctor's surgery goes, they freeze. I go, "Leave it!" And my children knew not to touch because I told them what I wanted them to do, not what I didn't want them to do. So if there's a word that you want to remove from your vocabulary, it's this one here, don't. But there's another thing that we need to do if we want our children to communicate with clarity and precision. We need to have wait time. It takes time for students and children's and adults' brains to process information. The younger the child, the longer it takes. If you've got young children, you know that if you give them more than one instruction at a time, they can't follow them because they have to finish the first instruction before they do the second instruction and the third instruction. So, if you say to your child, "Put on your shoes and socks and go and stand by the door," they'll start putting on their socks, and then you say, no, don't worry, just put your sandals on, it will be quicker, or your flip-flops, they'll be quicker, and go to the door. But what they have to do is finish the first instruction, so they keep putting their socks on. And you go, no, I told you not to do. It's like, but they have to finish one instruction before they do the next instruction, before they do the next instruction. And we need to provide time for children's brains to process. So instead of giving them lots of instructions, we give them one and time to process. In fact, we need to give them this wait time. A friend says we wait until it hurts and then we wait some more. When we ask them a question, we need to wait for their response rather than saying something to interrupt their thinking process. The research says we should wait between 7 and 10 seconds. It's a really long time. It's a long time to be quiet. And allow children's brains to process, allow them to think. So, I want to show you this video. This is about what happens when we don't provide wait time. And so it creates this, what they call frustration, anxiety, and tension when we don't give children time for thinking. So, hopefully this works. Let's see. See what happens when we don't give time for thinking. And it's true for adults, but it's also very true for our children. And I had a parent say to me the other day, she said, I get up half an hour before my children and I do my exercise and I have my time. And then she said, the children get up, we have breakfast, and then she said, I go off to have a shower. And she said, before my shower, I say, when I get out of the shower, I want you to do this, 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 and this by the time I finished. And she said she gets out of the shower and they've done nothing. And every day she gets cross, she gets angry with the children. And she saw that video and she went, no time for the children to process all of those instructions. And it's all swimming around and they don't know what they need to do. Another parent saw the video and said, I need to ask my children to repeat back what I've asked them to do. Another one said, I send them to school and say, remember to give the money to your teacher. Remember to take your library book. Remember after school you're getting a haircut. And remember to look for your jersey because you lost it. And remember, and she said, before they get to school, there's so many instructions. How do they learn? There's too many things happening inside their head. So she said, I'll slow down and allow the children time for processing. A phrase that might be useful to use with your children is this one: in a moment, but not quite yet. If they're very impulsive, and by the way, it's normal for children to be impulsive. But if you say, we're going out, and then, but they've gone, because we're going out in the car, and they've gone to the car, and they haven't heard, make sure you get your water bottle, or whatever it is. Instead we say, in a moment, but not quite yet, we're going out to the car. So please get your water bottle and then we'll go. And so they stop. That simple little phrase, in a moment, but not quite yet, helps children to stop and think about what it is they need to do. Okay. Let's go back to another one. Oh, we've just done that one. Okay, so we want to add questioning and problem posing. We want our children to ask questions. It's very important in the 21st century to be questioners, to be problem posers, to be able to solve the problems, but they have to know what those problems are before they can solve them. And I'm not sure if this happened in Brazil, but on the 15th of March this year, all around the world, teenagers went on strike and they didn't go to school because of this one young lady. This young lady from Sweden made a beautiful speech about climate change and that adults aren't doing enough for climate change. And she said to the teenagers of the world, they're not doing it, we have to do it. We have to make a difference. And this young lady caused a worldwide movement of teenagers, millions of teenagers who didn't go to school that day, to protest about climate change. There's another young lady from Bali, in Indonesia, who set a school project to stop single-use plastic bags in supermarkets. And now, all around the world, supermarkets are stopping to use and not allowing single-use plastic bags to help with the plastic problem in the world. And never underestimate the power that your child will and can have in the world. And a colleague of mine suggests, instead of asking children, what will you do when you leave school? Because they don't know. They don't know what jobs they're going to be. In fact, they're going to do many different jobs over their lifetime. So instead of asking that question, he says we should ask, what wicked problems matter to you and what are you going to do about it? What wicked problems matter to you and what are you going to do about it? And empowering our children to be the people who can change the world, because indeed they can be. They have that ability. And I think our children are getting smarter and smarter and smarter as the next generations come through. And it should be that way, shouldn't it? They should be smarter than us. Except sometimes some of what we've been doing in the world is stopping this. And if we look at this one, listening with understanding and empathy, Aunt Costa would say this is the queen of the habits of mind. Being able to stop and listen to somebody and take the time to hear from their perspective what it is they are saying. And did you know you have mirror neurons? These are neurons in your brain that mirror or copy what you see. So, if you have a look at the photograph, here's my question. What is the parent doing? What is the parent doing? Some of you just went. Some of you just went. Opening the mouth. And look where the child's eyes are. Not on the food, but on the parent. What is it I need to do right now? And so the child is looking, your children look to you every day to see, what do I do? How do I act as an adult? How do I conduct myself? And if you were always moaning and groaning about how hard life is, why would they want to grow up and be an adult? We need to tell them how amazing life is. We need to show them through our life how amazing life is. And what a privilege we get to do that. My sister doesn't have children of her own and has been unable to have children, but she has lots of children who come to her house to stay, and they all call her auntie. They're not relations, but they call her auntie. And she said to me the other day, she's feeding one of the children, and the child looked at her and said, "Auntie, don't eat while you're talking." And I love it when children reflect back to us what we've been telling them. My mum used to say, "Don't talk with a mouthful." Right? And very good advice. But often we say one thing, but we model something else and we show something else. So making sure we can be aware of what it is unconsciously we are showing our children. What is it unconsciously our children are learning from us? So we are the models. One of the big things, of course, are our cell phones. And what consciously are you showing your children? Simon Sinek says that if you have your cell phone in your hand while you're having a conversation with a person, you are telling them unconsciously that whatever's on that phone could be more important than they are. So we want to make sure that we have no phones at times that are important. One of those times for me is at dinner. And my husband and I modelled this before my children had cell phones. So when they were very small, if the phone rang at dinner time, we would say, "No phones at the table, we will answer it later. We will call the person back." And that when they got phones, they already knew we don't have phones at the table. We also do not have television on when we are at the table. Our dinner table is a wonderful time for us to connect and to talk. And we talk about what was your favourite part of the day. And we go around the table and we talk. And then we started asking different questions. We started saying, "What are you grateful for today?" I noticed my children weren't being very grateful. They just expected everything. So I started to ask them, "What are you grateful for today?" And then I wanted my children to know that they could influence and have impact on the world every day. So every day we ask, "What did you do or see in the world today that had an impact, a positive impact?" And they would say things like, "I picked up some rubbish off the ground today and put it in the trash can." Or they would say, "I stopped and waved at the car that stopped to let me cross the road." Or my daughter would say, "Daniela didn't have enough lunch today, so I shared my biscuit with her." and that tiny little things they could do every single day to show that they were having a positive impact on the world. And so what is the conversation at your dinner table? And at the end, if you would like me to send you my 50 questions for the dinner table, I'll get you to sign a piece of paper with your email address, and I can send that to you. So if you'd like that, and I can send you lots of information. Okay. If we want our children to be great thinkers, this is a protocol or a routine the teachers use in school. And so when we want our children to be clear about what they're saying, we often say, when they say, this is what happened, or this is what I believe, we often say, what makes you say that? So when we ask them a question, we want them to go a little bit deeper. What makes you say that? Or my children often have read fake news. Do you have fake news here? Yes. And children believe all the fake news. And so I say, what makes you say that? Or what evidence have you got to say that that's true? And they'll say, I saw it on Instagram. And what evidence have you got? YouTube. It was on YouTube. It must be true. No. So what and now what? For our learners, how important it is that we help them to grow and help them to think. And this is another thinking routine that the teachers use with our children. I used to think, now I think. Right? And so it could be an example is, I used to think that eating food with lots of fat was bad for me. But now I found out that it's the sugar in the food that is not so good, and the fat is not so bad. And so our thinking changes over time. And as parents, our thinking will change over time. And we want our children's thinking to change over time. So, helping them to know that there are ways to do certain thinking routines, which again your teachers will be using. So how has your thinking changed today? Perhaps about how you're going to help prepare your children for the world. Perhaps about how you are going to help connect more with your children, about how you might help them develop these habits of mind or dispositions. So take a moment just to share with the person next to you about what is one thing that you could take away from today that would make a difference, positive difference to your life and to your child's life, to help them be a better thinker and learner beyond the school gate. Turn to the person next to you. What's one thing? Go. I'd like to finish with one more thing. To be the best parent you can be, I truly believe that you need to look after yourself first. Often, as parents, we spend all our time making sure our children's needs are met, but not our own. But I believe it's really important to meet our own needs first, and then we have more energy and more capabilities to be able to meet our children's needs. There's 5 things that I believe as adults that's very important. Number 1 is that we're drinking enough water. Bless you. And that we're keeping our water levels up, keeping ourselves hydrated. Number 2 is that we're eating nutrient-rich food, that we are looking after ourselves healthy-wise, having good food to give us energy. Number 3, that we're getting some form of exercise. And that doesn't have to be long moments of time. It could be just 4 times a day for 1 minute of what we call huffy puffy exercise. And it could be that we're just running on the spot for 1 minute, 4 times a day. I have a colleague who talks about snacking on exercise 4 times a day. Just have a snack of exercise. We also want to surround ourselves with positive people who lift us up, and people who empower us. And finally is to have some form of daily gratitude practice, to be able to know how grateful that we are for our lives. And the key is, when life is hard, when life is tough, when life is challenging, can we still find gratitude? Because actually, we have so much to be grateful for. We are actually so blessed and so lucky. So, being able to find that gratitude for just the little things that happen in our life. And so those 5 things, if we look after ourselves, gives us this energy. I think parenting is exhausting. It's hard work. It's all demanding. And so when we look after ourselves and we have the energy, we can help others. I also practice what I call joyful parenting. It is stressful as a parent, and so finding as much joy as you can. And I will send you this poster. So I'll send you this because there's more. I'm the parent who, when my children come home, I'm hiding in the pantry and I jump out and go boom! Even now they're teenagers, I still do it. They come into my office and I hear them coming and I hide under the desk. And my daughter says, "Mum, we can see you." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And they roll their eyes. I blow bubbles in my office at them. I try and practice joyful parenting. By the way, I still yell at my children. I still get cross and angry, but I've learned how to apologise and to practice modelling the apology so they know how to apologise back to me, because it's a relationship. But we do so many fun things together. And how might you continue to practice that joyful parenting, just to have those little connections? Do you, in the kitchen drawer, the plastic film that you put over things, what do you call that? Do you call that plastic film? Oh, okay. Plastic film. That comes in the tube. When the tube is finished, I get the tube and I go doo-doo-doo around the house, and my children roll their eyes. But do you know, just the other day, I saw my 19-year-old son finish the tube, and he went doo-doo-doo. And I said to him, "Oh, are you going to do that with your children?" And he said, "Probably." And I thought, I am going to live forever. He's going to say, "Your grandmother used to do that." I'm waiting for grandchildren. It's a long way away. But he said, "I'll probably do it." And I'm like, yay, they pick up those little fun things that you do, and they'll continue to do it with their children. And I think, how blessed am I that my children want to do those things. So, I'd like to thank you for taking time to be here today. I'd like to thank you for coming to learn a little bit more about the habits of mind. And I'd like to thank you for being the parent who really wants to support your child at Concept. Because I know the teachers really are focused on success for your children. and it's a partnership. And so we all need to work together for success. And it takes time. It won't happen overnight that your children will develop these dispositions, but it will happen the more that we practice them together. So thank you, and if you would like any of my resources at the end, please just come and pop your details on the paper here, and if you've got any questions, please come and ask me. So thank you very much.
Karen, thank you very much. I think that our gratitude for you in this day, it's very important to give us more information on how to relate with our kids as a parent, and for the school as well, the way that we can also have the help of parents. Because this, like yesterday I told to the teachers, if one person is doing it, it will have a small effect. If we have our community working on that, we will have the impact that we're willing and that we're looking for. So thank you very much. We would like to open for questions. If there are some questions, please, this is the moment, and she's staying here until tomorrow. So let's try to, if you guys have any questions. No? Excellent then. Thank you very much. She's still here. If you guys want to stop by and talk, se vocês quiserem anotar aqui a informação de vocês para vocês receberem o material deles. Pessoal, fico muito feliz de ter a participação de vocês. Eu acho que esse é um momento muito importante e a gente vai, no decorrer do ano, continuar praticando esses momentos. Muito obrigado. Fica o convite. Para sexta-feira, a gente vai começar o Café com Diretores. É um momento para a gente bater um papo informal. A gente vai ter um café para a gente poder conversar sobre educação, sobre o que está acontecendo na escola e escutar sugestões. Obrigado e um bom dia.